The comm flickered, spitting static across the dimly lit mess hall. Captain Jaxon Rourke swiped a hand through his stubbled scalp, trying to rub away the headache that clung to him like the red dust of Aria. "Anything, Geary?" Geary, a wiry mechanic with cybernetic fingers perpetually stained with grease, squinted at the antiquated console. "Just the usual static, Cap. Nothing but cosmic whispers and the ghosts of forgotten signals." Rourke grunted. That was Valhalla Mining Corp Station 42 in a nutshell, a place of whispers and ghosts. Officially, it was a deep space listening post, monitoring for anomalous energy signatures. Unofficially, it was the ass end of the galaxy, a dumping ground for soldiers too decorated, too insubordinate, or too morally compromised for frontline duty. And here he was, in command. The mess hall, like the rest of the station, was a collection of patched-up modules salvaged from derelict freighters and decommissioned outposts. Corrugated metal walls, flickering fluorescent tubes, and a pervasive smell of recycled protein paste painted a picture of neglect that Central Command seemed all too happy to ignore. The temperature was perpetually hovering a few degrees below comfortable, a consequence of the station's unreliable thermal regulators. Rourke glanced around at his crew. 11 faces, each etched with their own brand of weariness and cynicism. There was Kaido, a hulking ex-marine haunted by the ghosts of a lost squad, now the station's heavy weapons specialist. Maya, a sharp-tongued xenobiologist who used the station's limited hydroponics lab to cultivate strange, glowing flora. And then there was Silas, a con artist turned communications officer, who could sweet-talk a droid into giving up its power core. Each one had a story to tell, a reason for being exiled to this desolate corner of space. "Something's out there, Cap," Geary said, his voice tight. "I'm getting a burst of something, too short to be a signal. It's irregular." Rourke's hand instinctively went to the pulse rifle slung across his back. "Combat alert?" "No, Cap, not yet. Could be space junk, could be a glitch. I need time to run diagnostics." "Take all the time you need," Rourke said, his eyes scanning the bleak vista outside the viewport. Aria, or what was left of it after the asteroid mining rush, filled the screen, a scarred, unforgiving landscape, lit by the cold, distant light of a binary star system. The station was a miniature, a microcosm of the mess the war had made of the galaxy. The Allied Galactic Union, once a beacon of hope and progress, had become a bloated bureaucracy, more interested in corporate profits than protecting its citizens. The War of the Sectors, fought over resources and ideology, had ended only recently, leaving countless worlds ravaged and millions displaced. Rourke had seen too much of it: the bombed-out cities, the refugee camps overflowing with despair, the casual indifference of those in power. It had hardened him, leaving a layer of ice around his heart. But beneath the ice, a flicker of something remained. A stubborn refusal to accept the cynicism that seemed to be the only logical response to the universe's cruelty. A desire, however buried, to make a difference. To create some semblance of order out of chaos, even in this forgotten corner of space. A reason for him to even care about this forgotten post. A sudden blare from the proximity alarm shattered the quiet. "Unidentified vessel approaching. Bearing 093, closing fast." Silas's voice crackled over the comms, tinged with his usual sardonic edge. "Looks like our galactic neighbors decided to pay a call." Rourke was already moving, strapping on his helmet and motioning for Kaido to join him. "Battle stations. Geary, find out who the hell that is." The vessel materialized on the main viewport, a sleek, black freighter, bearing the unmistakable logo of Kronos Corporation. A shiver ran down Rourke's spine. Kronos was a name synonymous with power, greed, and ruthless efficiency. They were the primary weapons supplier for both sides of the sector war and had left a long trail of exploitation and destruction in their wake. What could they possibly want with a backwater outpost like this? The freighter docked with the station's main airlock. Moments later, the comm crackled again. "Captain Rourke, this is Alara Vance, representative of Kronos Corporation. I request immediate audience." "Put her through," Rourke growled. Alara Vance's face appeared on the main screen. She was a striking woman, with icy blue eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. Her tailored uniform shimmered with understated elegance, a stark contrast to the grimy surroundings. "Captain Rourke," she said, her voice smooth and confident. "We have a delivery for you. A special asset that will significantly enhance your outpost's capabilities." Rourke narrowed his eyes. "I wasn't informed of any deliveries." Vance's smile widened. "Sometimes, Captain, the best things in life are unexpected. You'll find the asset in Cargo Bay 7. I trust you'll find it satisfactory." With a curt nod, the transmission cut. Rourke exchanged a look with Kaido. "Satisfactory? What the hell does that mean?" Rourke's team gathered in the cargo bay. Kaido, weapons slung over his shoulder, scanned every corner with unnerving intensity. Maya fiddled with a bioscanner, her expression a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Silas remained by the door, muttering something about corporate sharks and interstellar conspiracies. Geary, having been reassigned by Rourke from the communications department to be at his left side, checked the room for any malfunctions. The container, a monolith of polished black metal, dominated the room. A label was affixed to one side. "Fragile, handle with diplomatic care," irony dripping from each letter. Rourke punched in the access code Vance had provided. The container hissed, and the door irised open, revealing a stasis pod. Inside, suspended in a glowing blue fluid, was a figure. A woman. She was tall and slender, with skin the color of a stormy twilight sky and long, flowing hair that seemed to shimmer with captured starlight. Her ears were pointed and elegant, curving back like metallic leaves. Her eyes, closed in slumber, were framed by delicate, otherworldly features. "What in the sectors?" Kaido breathed. Maya's eyes widened behind her scanner. "Vital signs off the charts. This isn't human." Rourke stared at the figure, a knot forming in his stomach. It was beautiful, alien, and profoundly unsettling. "That's my reward?" After what felt like an eternity, Rourke broke the silence. "Geary, run a diagnostic on that pod. Find out how to open it, and what this thing is." Geary, visibly nervous, approached the pod with his scanner. The air crackled around him as the device whirred and beeped. "Energy readings are strange, high-frequency oscillations, like nothing I've ever seen. The pod is locked with a biosignature scanner, incredibly complex." Hours stretched into a tense vigil. Rourke, haunted by Aella's figure, grew increasingly impatient. Finally, with a frustrated sigh, Geary managed to bypass the pod's security system. As the pod hissed and the blue fluid drained away, the ship rumbled. Aella stirred, her eyes fluttered open, and her body floated up. "Captain, what in the world is going on?" Gears cried from the floor. "That was so not in the manual." As Aella awakens, she floats before them. It was as if time had slowed down. All eyes were locked on her, both in awe and bewilderment. "Where am I?" Her voice was a melodic whisper, laced with an accent unfamiliar to human ears. Her gaze swept across the faces of Rourke's team, landing finally on him. "You're on Outpost Ring 42, Rourke said, his voice surprisingly steady. "A mining station on the edge of explored space." Her brow furrowed. "Mining? I have no memory of." She trailed off, a flicker of confusion in her dark eyes. "You were in stasis," Rourke explained. "You were delivered here, as a reward." Aella's gaze hardened. "Reward? I am no one's possession. State your purpose." The raw power in her voice made even Kaido flinch. This wasn't some helpless captive. This was something else. Rourke stepped forward. "I'm Captain Jaxon Rourke. I run this outpost." He paused, searching for the right words. "Kronos Corporation sent you here, but I don't know why. Until we figure it out, you're under my protection." Aella regarded him with a cool, assessing gaze. "Protection? From whom?" "You. From anyone who would seek to exploit you," Rourke said firmly. "That includes Kronos, and anyone else with nefarious intentions." Her metallic leaf-shaped ears twitched. Nefarious intentions, a common human trait, I am led to believe. Rourke fought back a smile. Fair enough. But on this outpost I make the rules. And my first rule is, no exploitation. Aella stared at him for a long moment, gauging his sincerity. Finally, a flicker of something, perhaps curiosity, perhaps something akin to trust, softened her gaze. Very well, Captain Rourke. I will observe your rules, for now. After some discussion, Rourke had managed to negotiate some rules with the blue-skinned Aella. With Aella and Rourke working together, the outpost became a haven for all who lived on it. Aella did not rest on her laurels, her drive never waning. From the start, the inhabitants of the mining facility were skeptical, yet she had not given up on them. The days that turned into weeks began to settle. Rourke often found himself seeking out her opinion on a number of matters. He liked hearing her perspective on situations. The outpost members also benefited from her skill set, which included but weren't limited to engineering, medicine, and a few other skills that would come in handy. As time went on, there were several accidents in and out of the outpost that proved Liara to be invaluable. Rourke began to see that Aella was more than a machine, that she is capable of feeling human emotions like him and his squad mates. Rourke took a step back, his pulse quickening. Geary, override the safety protocols. Stand by with the disruptor. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to unleash something he couldn't control. The stasis pod, a gleaming cylinder of chrome and energy fields, stood before them. The air in the cargo bay thrummed with barely contained power. Even the normally unflappable Kaido looked uneasy, his hand resting on the grip of his pulse rifle. Geary tapped a series of commands into the ancient console. Override sequence engaged, Captain. Sealant pressure dropping. Biosignatures normalizing. Stand clear. The pod hissed like a dying beast, vapor coiling from its seams. The blue fluid churned within, the light intensifying. This was getting out of hand. Was it not supposed to be so difficult? A warning light blinked red above the pod's viewport. Rourke tensed, his instincts screaming danger. Everyone, brace yourselves! With a final, ear-splitting shriek of overworked hydraulics, the pod snapped open. The force of the release sent a shockwave through the cargo bay, rattling loose panels and throwing dust into the air. And then, there she was. She floated, suspended in the air for a heartbeat, like a star newly born in the void. The last remnants of the blue fluid dripped from her ethereal form, clinging to skin that shimmered like a twilight sky. Power emanated from her, a silent hum that vibrated in the bones. It was not what he expected. He fully expected to open the pod to a droid or a weapon. Or worse. It was what she could do that worried him. What were her capabilities? What was her purpose? What did those soulless bastards at Kronos want this thing doing? Lockdown, secure Sector C4. He heard himself yelling over the intercom as his mind struggled to keep up. It must be some kind of a weapon. What is happening? Where am I? She crooned softly. It had the most intoxicating voice Jaxon had ever had the privilege of hearing. It was sweet, soothing, and alluring. As it spoke, an energy wave passed through him, the likes of which he had never felt before. He didn't know whether it was some kind of mind control ability, or maybe it was just the atmosphere here getting to him. Aella, he heard Vance say through the comms. Then it all began to fall into place. Ah yes, just what the good captain always wanted, she went on. An alien companion! The crew let out snickers and chuckles. Rourke had built this team to work cohesively together, but sometimes he felt like they were all at each other's throats. This crew was as dysfunctional as they came. They were what he had, what he needed. No! Rourke roared, his voice echoing in the metal confines of the cargo bay. I didn't ask for this. I have a job to do. I have a station to run. Vance's image shimmered with mock sympathy. Of course, Captain. But the board believes you deserve a little companionship. And Aella here is uniquely qualified to assist in your mission. She's adaptable, intelligent, and possesses certain abilities that will prove invaluable. Abilities like what? Rourke challenged, his gaze fixed on Aella. He still hadn't lowered his pulse rifle, the weapon a silent testament to his unease. Vance's smile wavered for a fraction of a second. That is classified, Captain. Suffice to say, she can optimize resource management. Ensure the smooth operation of your, unique situation. The emphasis on unique dripped with condescension. Rourke's jaw tightened. Kronos was playing games, and he was suddenly a pawn. He turned to Aella. What do you know about this? Aella tilted her head, her black eyes studying him with an unsettling intensity. I was created with a purpose, Captain Rourke. To serve. To optimize. To fulfill expectations. Her voice lacked warmth, devoid of any inflection. But he saw a spark of something in her gaze, something that hinted at rebellion. Fulfill expectations? Rourke echoed, stepping closer. Whose expectations, Aella? Yours or Kronos? Vance's image flickered again, a warning sign that she was growing impatient. Captain, I suggest you familiarize yourself with the asset. You'll find her compliance most beneficial. The connection abruptly severed. Rourke cursed under his breath. Compliance. That word set his teeth on edge. He looked back at Aella. I'm not your owner, Liara. You don't have to listen to me if you don't want to. She stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to decipher his true intentions. I am programmed to obey. I am a tool to be used. Then break your programming, Rourke said, his voice low and urgent. Decide for yourself. For the first time, Aella's face showed a hint of emotion, a flicker of fear. I do not know how. Rourke lowered his pulse rifle, finally convinced that Aella wasn't an immediate threat. Then we'll figure it out. Together. He turned to his crew. All right, people, stand by. Geary, get me everything you can find on Aella and Kronos Corporation. Maya, check her for any implants or weapons. Silas, get a message to Central Command, let them know what's happened. Tell them the Kronos freighter is being detained pending further investigation. I'm aware there will be consequences, but this is for the best. The crew sprang to action, a sense of purpose returning to their movements. Even in the face of uncertainty, Rourke had given them a direction, a reason to believe. As the initial shock subsided, tension spread through the outpost like a virus. Mistrust festered. What if that thing's a bomb? Kaito growled, sharpening his combat knife with unnecessary ferocity. Kronos could have programmed her to blow us all to hell the moment she woke up. Maya shot him a withering glare. That's ridiculous, Kaito. She's clearly an advanced life form. She's not just some glorified explosive. You really believe that? That some corporation that treats whole galaxies like their personal garbage dump would show respect for life like some alien? Silas sneered, picking at his teeth with a data chip. He was a genius with technology, but utterly devoid of faith in humanity, or anything else. Rourke slammed his fist on the mess table, silencing the arguing. Enough! I need you all to focus on the task at hand. That means putting aside your personal prejudices and working together. Easy for you to say, Captain, Geary muttered, adjusting his cybernetic fingers. You didn't have your brain scanned by a blue-skinned alien. She scanned you? Rourke asked. Just a precaution, Aella interjected, her voice calm. To assess the threat level. Threat level? Silas scoffed. We're the threat, sweetheart. At least we used to be. Rourke glared at him. Silas, that's enough. Liara watched the exchange with detached curiosity. She still felt like an observer, an outsider looking in on a species she struggled to comprehend. Human emotions were chaotic, unpredictable, and often illogical. And the emotions on display in Outpost Ring 42 were especially raw and volatile. Later that day, Rourke found Aella examining the hydroponics lab. The plants, usually vibrant and glowing, seemed to have dimmed in her presence. What are you doing? Rourke asked cautiously. Observing, Aella replied, her gaze distant. Your species derives sustenance from these organisms. Yet you treat them with little respect. They're plants, Liara. Not sentient beings. Sentience is not a requirement for respect, Aella said, her voice firm. All life is interconnected. To diminish one form is to diminish all. Rourke stared at her, surprised by the depth of her conviction. That's actually kind of beautiful. Aella blinked, startled by his compliment. Beauty is a subjective concept, Captain. I do not understand its relevance. Rourke smiled. Maybe you will, someday. Maybe you will. Over the next few days, Rourke continued to learn about Aella and her capabilities. She could manipulate energy fields, heal injuries, and interface with any computer system with ease. But she was also deeply conflicted, torn between her programming and her growing sense of self-awareness. Rourke, in turn, shared stories of his past, of the battles he had fought, the friends he had lost, and the disillusionment that had taken root in his soul. He told her about the sector war, about the corporate greed that fueled it, and the senselessness of the sacrifices made in its name. One evening, under the cold, unforgiving light of Iridia's binary suns, they stood on the observation deck, watching the distant nebulae swirl like cosmic paint. Why did you stay? Aella asked, her voice soft. Why did you not leave this place, as you were ordered? Rourke shrugged. Because these people, they're my responsibility. They're all I have left. Aella turned to him, her black eyes reflecting the starlight. And what am I, Captain Rourke? Another responsibility? Rourke hesitated, searching for the right answer. You're different, he said finally. You challenge me. You make me question things I thought I knew. That's valuable. Aella's lips curved into a faint smile. Then perhaps, Captain Rourke, we can be of mutual benefit to one another. But their growing connection didn't go unnoticed. Silas, always the opportunist, saw a chance to exploit Aella's power for his own gain. He started spreading rumors, whispering about her potential to turn against them. He tried to stir up resentment among the crew, reminding them that Aella was an alien, an outsider, not to be trusted. One night, Rourke caught Silas trying to access Aella's stasis pod, claiming he wanted to check for bugs. Rourke exploded. He grabbed Silas by the collar and slammed him against the wall. Stay away from her, Silas, Rourke snarled. She's not a weapon, she's not a prize, and she's damn sure not your property. Understood? Silas, bruised and shaken, nodded weakly. But Rourke knew that the seeds of doubt had been sown. The fragile truce between his crew was threatening to shatter. The tension within Outpost Ring 42 was palpable, thick enough to choke on. Rourke, burdened by his responsibilities and wary of growing too attached to an alien force, began to distance himself from Aella. He became colder, more withdrawn, burying himself in the station's maintenance logs and combat simulations. One bleak evening, the ship rumbled with new threats and more tests of their loyalty. He could smell the ozone in the air, an indication of the damaged coolant system in the main array, and saw more than enough from the system to see that the power converters had been burned out. Liara! The two met in an intersection. Liara's calm and cool demeanor was a stark contrast to the state of the ship. They looked at each other. There wasn't a need to talk. What awaited them, the only thing they could do, was to find a new, real home.